Let's kick things off with a sizzling piece of news involving one of MMA's rising heavyweights, Tom Aspinall, and his take on a potential showdown with the striking sensation Alex Pereira. Aspinall has made it absolutely crystal clear that he believes he can defeat Pereira if the two were ever to meet inside the cage. When asked point blank about the possibility of a matchup between them, Aspinall didn't hesitate for a second. His answer was filled with unshakable confidence and a hint of bravado. Do I think I would beat Alex Pereira? I think I could beat anybody. That's not just a cocky throwaway line. It's a declaration from a fighter who's been making waves in the heaviest and arguably most dangerous division in MMA, the heavyweight division. Aspinall's confidence comes from a solid foundation. His recent performances have demonstrated that he's more than capable of handling some of the most powerful opponents in the world, and in the heavyweight division, power is king. Aspinall emphasized that the biggest factor in any fight involving him is power. He believes that if he lands a clean, solid shot, he has the ability to knock out anyone, and his recent fights certainly back that up. He's faced off with some of the hardest hitters in the division and has come through with impressive finishes and dominant performances. This is a man who doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk. But Aspinall didn't just stop at confidence. He brought up an important nuance in this potential matchup. Alex Pereira has yet to compete at heavyweight. That fact alone, Aspinall argues, changes the entire dynamic of the fight. Pereira is an absolute force at light heavyweight. His striking is world class, his timing is razor sharp, and he's proven to be a terrifying presence inside the cage. However, stepping up to heavyweight isn't just about being fast or precise anymore. Heavyweight is a completely different beast. It's a division where fights are often won and lost based on who can absorb punishment, who has the cardio to maintain pace through 5 rounds, and who can deliver fight-ending power repeatedly. Aspinall lives and breathes in this world every day. He's accustomed to the size, strength, and endurance required to survive and thrive at heavyweight. Pereira, on the other hand, hasn't yet proven himself in that arena. In fact, Aspinall referenced Pereira's most recent loss, suggesting that while Pereira is undoubtedly a dangerous fighter, he still has some questions to answer before he can confidently take on the elite at heavyweight. Pereira remains focused on holding down his light heavyweight domain, and Aspinall believes it'll take time, and likely a few serious challenges, before we see if Pereira is truly ready to take that next step. But make no mistake, when pressed for a definitive answer, Aspinall was unequivocal. Yes, he believes he can beat Alex Pereira. No hesitation, no second guessing. So there you have it. Tom Aspinall is ready for the challenge, and he's not afraid to say so. Stay tuned, because this potential clash could be one of the most exciting matchups in MMA if it ever comes to fruition. That wraps up this segment, but don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more coming your way. Before we dive into the next big story, let's take a moment to highlight some of the most talked about comments from our previous video, which covered the jaw-dropping news about Jon Jones declaring that he's done fighting. As you can imagine, the comment section was absolutely buzzing with reactions, ranging from frustration to humor to outright disbelief. The very first comment we want to spotlight came in strong and to the point. Good. Can we now move on from Jon Jones? Tired of this whole thing? It's clear that some fans have grown weary of the never-ending drama surrounding Jones. For years, he's been one of the most polarizing figures in MMA, both inside and outside the cage. And now, with this latest announcement that he's stepping away, at least for now, some viewers are just ready to turn the page and focus on the future of the sport. This comment captures that sentiment perfectly, reflecting the frustration of those who just want fresh storylines and new champions to cheer for. But, as always on the internet, not every comment is serious or straightforward. One user, going by the handle BA2037, took a much lighter, humorous approach. Jon got one whiff of that Thai guy's hair on the bike and decided he has a new calling in life. This was clearly a playful jab referencing a recent viral moment involving Tai Tuivasa. The internet never fails to add a comedic spin to serious news, and this comment had fans chuckling with its creative and offbeat sense of humor. It's moments like these that remind us how much fans enjoy blending pop culture, fighter personalities, and meme-worthy moments into the MMA conversation. And then there was Perfect Panels 9, who dropped a comment that went straight for the knockout in terms of roasting. I guess now the only thing Jon is fighting is his sexuality. This comment sparked a mix of reactions. Some fans found it hilarious and cutting, while others saw it as a bit harsh or disrespectful. Regardless, it's a reminder that Jon Jones's public image often brings out some of the most raw, unfiltered opinions from the fan base. The MMA community can be brutally honest, and Jones's status as a controversial figure figure means he often finds himself at the center of both admiration and criticism. What these comments all reveal is one thing: fans have mixed feelings about Jon Jones's current situation. Some want him to retire quietly and move on, others can't help but poke fun at his roller coaster career, and many remain hopeful for some clarity or an eventual comeback. If you want your opinion to be featured in the next episode, don't be shy, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Now, moving on to another major story, Ilia Topuria's next 2 UFC fights may have just been revealed, and if what we're hearing is true, the path forward for Topuria is looking more ambitious than ever. In the long and legendary history of the UFC, we've witnessed a handful of fighters achieve the incredible feat of becoming 2 division champions. Names like Dan Henderson from the old Pride days, and more recently, Conor McGregor, Daniel Cormier, Henry Cejudo, and Amanda Nunes. These were fighters who didn't just want to dominate one division, they wanted to make history by holding belts in 2 different weight classes. And they did, but you know what we've never seen? A fighter claiming gold in 3 different divisions. There was a moment where fans thought Alex Pereira might be the one to do it. After moving up from middleweight to light heavyweight and capturing the title, there were whispers about a possible jump to heavyweight. People imagined Pereira chasing triple champion status, but that dream never quite materialized. The timing wasn't right, the matchups didn't line up, and so the opportunity passed. Now, however, the spotlight has shifted to a new name, Ilia Topuria. Ahead of his highly anticipated lightweight title fight against former champion Charles Oliveira, the Topuria camp has been quietly hinting at even bigger things, and recently those hints became a lot more direct. In an interview with Enrique Jameo MMA, Ilia's brother Alexander Topuria gave us a rare peek behind the curtain, and what he shared was shocking. According to Alexander, the dream scenario for Ilia is this: first, beat Charles Oliveira and win the lightweight belt. Next, they want to see Islam Makhachev move up to welterweight and win the title there. Then, set up a super fight between Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev for a chance at a 3rd title. That's right, the plan isn't just to win 2 belts. The goal is for Ilia Topuria to become the first ever 3-division champion in UFC history. Lightweight, featherweight, and eventually welterweight. It's a bold vision, one that feels almost unrealistic at first glance. But then again, Topuria is already undefeated. He's a devastating striker with high-level jiu-jitsu, an iron mindset, and now, a team that's pushing the boundaries of what's possible. If this plan unfolds the way they hope, we could be witnessing the beginning of one of the most historic runs in UFC history. A 3-division champion would change the way fighters approach legacy, division loyalty, and career goals. It would reshape the conversation around what's truly possible in MMA. So keep your eyes on Topuria, because if this dream becomes reality, we're gonna see history made. Now, let's move on to a developing story that's capturing a lot of attention in the MMA world. Ariel Helwani and his strong take on Jon Jones' future in the UFC. Helwani, one of the sport's most respected insiders and journalists, has been extremely vocal lately, urging the UFC to take decisive action regarding the status of Jon Jones. If Jones has truly informed the UFC about his plans, whether that means stepping away from fighting for good or some kind of extended hiatus, Helwani argues that it's time for those plans to be made public. This transparency is especially important for fighters like Tom Aspinall, who have been waiting patiently for their chance at the title. As Helwani bluntly put it, someone's got to be lying. What he means is this: either the UFC knows exactly what Jon Jones' plans are or they don't. And if they do know, then why on earth are they keeping all this information quiet? Helwani believes the UFC has been sitting on this issue, unwilling to take action until they are forced to do so. He says that as long as there's no urgent need to fill a main event slot or a championship fight, the organization will likely continue to sit back and wait. But the reality is that Tom Aspinall has already waited long enough. According to Helwani, the UFC should just strip the title from Jon Jones if he truly has no plans to fight, and then let Tom fight for the undisputed championship. Fans and fighters alike are growing restless, and the UFC risks losing momentum if they keep dragging their feet. Helwani went into more detail about this whole situation during a recent episode of the Ariel Helwani Show. When asked if he really believed Jon Jones was done with fighting, Helwani said that he believes Jon is serious this time around. He revealed that the UFC had reportedly offered Jon a significant amount of money to stay and continue defending his belt, but Jon turned it down flat. That strongly suggests Jon's decision may be final, at least for now. However, anyone who follows MMA knows how fast things can change. The landscape shifts quickly, and a comeback or reversal is always possible. Adding to the drama, new footage surfaced most recently showing Jon Jones FaceTiming with an old friend. In the video, Jon clearly said he was done fighting. He appeared calm and even somewhat cheerful, reaffirming that he had no immediate plans to return to the octagon. But then, just one day later, Jon reposted that same video on his Instagram story, with a caption that seemed like a direct taunt aimed at Tom Aspinall. The caption read, "Drama dog got humbled fast. Have you ever seen a dog correct another dog like this?" That cryptic message left many fans scratching their heads. Is Jon just trolling, or is there something more serious behind his words? This back and forth between Jon and Tom has left many fans and analysts feeling frustrated and confused. To make matters more intense, Jon also responded directly to a fan who accused him of wasting Tom Aspinall's prime. The fan wrote, "Bro really wasted Tom's prime like that. No respect at all." And Jon's reply, simply, "Cry more." Comments like this only add fuel to the already burning fire of drama between the two fighters, making the saga even more compelling and unpredictable. Next up, let's dive into a fascinating story involving Tony Ferguson's reaction to Israel Adesanya's recent training sessions with the legendary David Goggins. For those who don't know, David Goggins is famous for pushing athletes to their absolute limits with his brutal, mind-bending workouts. These sessions aren't just physically demanding, they're a test of mental toughness and resilience. And Tony Ferguson, known for his own toughness inside the octagon, experienced this firsthand before his fight with Paddy Pimblett. Like Israel Adesanya, Tony went through Goggins' grueling training and, just like many who've trained with the man, ended up throwing up during the sessions. That alone speaks volumes about how insanely difficult and intense these workouts are. It's not just sweat and effort. Goggins demands everything you've got, pushing fighters beyond the usual limits of endurance and mental focus. When Tony saw the footage of Israel training with Goggins, he couldn't help but express how much he appreciated seeing another fighter undergo that kind of challenge. "Hell yeah," Tony said enthusiastically. "It's good, man. I think every fighter should go through that. Maybe not a whole week like Israel did, but at least one session." Ferguson believes that even a single workout with Goggins can have a massive impact on a fighter's mindset. According to Tony, Goggins' training is about more than just physical conditioning. It's about cultivating mental strength, learning to embrace discomfort, and building the kind of relentless focus that's crucial inside the cage. While Tony referred to the week he spent training with Goggins as light work for the legendary coach, the influence it had on him was anything but light. It left a huge impression on his mental and physical preparation. Ferguson's comments highlight how impactful training with someone like Goggins can be, not just for elite fighters like Israel and Tony, but for anyone looking to push their limits and develop a stronger, tougher mindset. Goggins' approach is intense, no doubt, but it's exactly the kind of challenge that can transform athletes and change the way they approach competition and life itself. Let's circle back to the ongoing Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall saga, one of the most talked about matchups that fans have been eagerly waiting to see for quite some time now. Recently, Ariel Helwani dropped some behind-the-scenes information that sheds light on why this fight still hasn't been officially booked despite all the hype. After closely analyzing Jon Jones' tweets, social media behavior, and the UFC's recent moves, Helwani revealed that the reason for the delay isn't just about contract negotiations or fighter egos, it's actually strategic planning by the UFC itself. According to Ariel, the UFC doesn't currently need to rush a major headlining event like Jones versus Aspinall because their schedule is already packed with big-name stars and promising pay-per-view anchors. He gave some interesting examples of recent UFC title stripping decisions that weren't necessarily about inactivity or fairness, but rather about what the organization needed to fill specific event slots. For instance, Helwani pointed out that the UFC recently stripped Ilia Topuria of his featherweight title, not because he was inactive or unworthy, but simply because they needed a solid main event for UFC 314. Similarly, they stripped Islam Makhachev of his title to facilitate the much-anticipated Topuria versus Charles Oliveira lightweight title fight. These moves highlight a trend where the UFC prioritizes filling their cards with marketable, must-see fights over strictly following merit-based title reigns. So, when it comes to the Jones versus Aspinall fight, the UFC is simply playing the long game. They aren't rushing to book the bout because, quite frankly, they don't have to. Every major date on their calendar, whether it's June 7th, June 28th, July 19th, or even even the August pay-per-view already has a high-profile fight locked in. Unless there's a sudden change in circumstances, such as a key fighter pulling out or an event losing its main event, the UFC won't feel pressured to pull the trigger on Jones versus Aspinall just yet. Helwani even coined a term for this approach, calling it the holstocracy instead of a meritocracy. In other words, the UFC operates on filling holes in their event cards rather than strictly rewarding fighters based on rankings or who deserves the next shot the most. The organization's priority is business and timing, not just sporting fairness. What does this mean for fans? Simply put, it means we wait. The fight between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall, a matchup that could be career-defining and legacy-shaping for both men, might not happen anytime soon. It's a fight that many want to see, but if the UFC sticks to its current strategy, it will only be booked when there's a clear, open slot that needs a blockbuster to boost viewership and pay-per-view sales. Until that moment comes, all we can do is keep watching the developments, speculating about the timing, and hoping for some clarity on when or even if this fight will materialize. But as is always the case in MMA, expect the unexpected. Things can change rapidly with a new injury, contract twist, or sudden shift in the UFC's priorities. Now, we want to hear from you. What do you think about this situation? Should Jon Jones be stripped of his title if he continues to stay inactive? Does Tom Aspinall deserve to get his moment in the spotlight sooner rather than later? And what about Ilia Topuria's historic ambitions? Will he really become the first ever 3-division UFC champion? Drop your thoughts and predictions in the comments below. Stay tuned because this story is far from over, and we'll keep bringing you all the latest updates as they come.